Welcome back to the Bluechip Breakdown, Vols fans. I'm your host, Bull. I hope that everyone had a great extended weekend with Memorial Day, and thank you so much to everyone who sent in donations over this weekend. We appreciate all of that support, and if you would like to donate as well, then just know that that barcode is going to be up in the top right-hand corner of this video, and you can scan that and donate to this channel. In today's video, we are going to be talking about the softball team. We just had a crushing loss versus Alabama. We'll be talking about our baseball team heading into the NCAA tournament. And I really want to focus a lot in this video on the young offensive tackle talent that we have currently and what we could have moving forward. So please, as always, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, so let's start this one off with our softball team. Unfortunately, we did exit the NCAA tournament in the Super Regionals right before we got to the World Series as the number 3 seed to the number 14 seed in our hated rival, Alabama. So number one, right, in the game on Saturday, okay, we lose that one 2-3 in like 14 innings or something like that. I felt like once we didn't find a way to score some points with phenomenal pitching, I just did not feel as confident moving forward in that final game. Whenever you are the better team, you've got to close things out when you get those opportunities. You cannot let them linger around because the longer that you do that, the more dangerous that team becomes. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Alabama lose, in this next series that they have coming up, just because, yeah, their pitching did look good. Okay, I'm going to give credit where it's due. It looks like they're kind of getting hot at the right time, but we're better than them. We had no business losing to them, and I'm very, very disappointed. I am proud of our ladies, right? But I am disappointed, obviously, that we did not advance. So let's go on to the game Sunday. We all know that it's going to be storms and everything up in Tennessee, and a lot of folks have been speculating, should that game have been started at the point that it was started? Well, I mean, you can't really blame whoever it is, if it's the umpires or, whoever. You've got to try to get that game in. So I'm not too mad at them for that. I definitely get it, right? Like, you want to kind of blame somebody, but at the end of the day, it's not based off of us starting the game when we did. I think that Peyton Gotcha, who got the start on Sunday, did a great job. Like, she got off to a really good start, 2 outs. And then I believe that she goes on to hit 2 batters. The bases end up loaded. And then they get this grand slam. So things like that can happen, right? Like, I mean, it's baseball, it's sports. Even though Peyton Gotcho might be the best pitcher in all of softball, I mean, hey, the ball sometimes will bounce in the other team's favor. That goes back to my point of why we've got to close out on teams that we're better than whenever we get those opportunities. So anyway, after that, Alabama's up 4-0, and we have not been doing a great job of scoring points. We haven't been doing a great job of hitting, and once the players are on base, I mean, we're not bringing them home. So I was pretty concerned at that point as well. And then, the game kind of gets postponed for 3, 4, 5 hours, something like that. And I felt like, okay, this is the time that the veterans on this team will step up. Coach Weekly will step up, and we're going to rally. We're going to find a way to be a little bit more aggressive at the plate. Or maybe not even so much of being aggressive, but being I guess, decisive in the pitches that we're hitting. Whenever we get our pitch, let's go get it. Let's not wait. This is something that just for me with baseball and softball, I understand in certain situations that, hey, like, let's watch this first pitch and let's get a good feel for, how the ball's coming in, all that type of stuff. But in the situation, whenever you're down 4-0, I think that you've got to be more decisive in swinging the bat whenever you get a good pitch, even if it's on the first pitch. So that's just for me. Obviously, I'm not a baseball coach or nothing like that. Definitely not at this level. So I'm not trying to undermine Coach Weekly, but I felt like we could have done a much better job at that. So once we kind of come back out and start playing, pitching is phenomenal, right? I don't know how many hits we gave up, but it wasn't many. We don't give up any more points. And we just don't get hot hitting until those later innings. I want to say maybe in the 6th inning, we score 1 point. And then, in the bottom of the 7th, we started to rally, you know what I mean? Like, things just kind of started to bounce our way. I was like, okay, this is going to be it. Like, we're going to make this happen. And, this is going to be really, really special. And, we end up having 2 outs. I want to say that the bases may have been loaded with Kiki Malloy up to bat. If the bases weren't loaded, there was 2 on. We had the chance to really win this ball game. And, you can't put it all on her, not in this moment, but, she does make contact. I think she makes pretty solid contact, but she grounds out to the shortstop, and ultimately Alabama will advance. And, I just really would not be surprised to see them lose in their next series, just because, again, y'all, we were the much, much better team. We just didn't play like it for whatever reason in this series. So hate to see, all of the seniors and everything going out like this. I think that they did play well, especially on defense. Several big plays, several key moments. It was a lot of fun watching it, but it was also just so stressful. And just to be quite honest with you, I'm happy that that series is over. I just wish that it would have resulted in our Volunteers advancing. So better luck to us next season. Hopefully in the offseason, we will address the hitting. Got to get a lot better at scoring points. So we're going to go ahead and switch gears to some more exciting news and happy news with our baseball team. We did win the SEC tournament. So win the SEC, okay, and then we outright win the tournament. I would say that we should be considered the SEC champions through and through. No tie with Kentucky, none of that, especially because we did beat them head to head. So we do lose our first game in the SEC tournament to Vanderbilt, but we did get our revenge and we're able to beat them 6-4 on Saturday. That one felt really good, but Vanderbilt was about to come back in that game as well. I think that we did close it out. That was great, but have to be a little bit more careful, right, moving forward. Like, that's something that I'm going to be watching. Do not let these teams stick around. Let's close it out, right? Like in the regional series, which we'll kind of talk about those matchups here in just a minute. I want for us to just dominate. I don't want for us to let these teams get back in any way, shape, form, or fashion, because we've got to close out games. We don't want to see what happened to our softball team happen to our baseball team. But we did beat Vanderbilt to move on to the SEC championship, and we played up against LSU, who's a really hot team right now, and we beat LSU 4-3. That's another game that LSU is coming back in. But, I was just really happy to see a guy like Billy Barrows getting his thing back going, right? He was in a slump for a long time, but I think he got a 3-run homer. So that's great because we're going to need him moving forward. I think that Simo looked good. Blake Burke looks good. He's continuing to be very consistent. We look good hitting, and I think that there's several players that are stepping up on defense. Now, Tiers had a couple of issues there, but that's going to happen, right? Like, players cannot play perfect all the time. His teammates picked him up, and I'm just proud of the way that this team is looking, how we're trending, heading into the NCAA tournament. I want to point out our pitching, though, right? Especially with one guy, Marcus Phillips. I like what I saw from him. Haven't seen a whole lot from him this season, but, man, he's throwing upper 90s, right? So he could be that secret weapon if he will just continue to gain confidence. Moving forward, we're going to need him deep into this tournament, so that's very exciting for me. But overall, I think that our pitching is looking solid, right? Like, it looks really good, but it has to continue to improve. We've been saying that for like the past month or so. Got to get better there. Bats got to stay high. And that's really a big part of the reason I'm happy that we went as far as we did in this tournament. We kind of talked about that last week. Hey, does it really matter if we win this whole thing? I don't think that it matters, kind of, right? Like, I think that it does matter because we wanted to stay high. Like, we wanted to work on certain things. And, we threw a lot of pitches out there. I feel like overall as a team, we're very confident and it should help us out tremendously. Now, let's talk about our matchups in the NCAA tournament. And we are the number 1 seed in the entire NCAA tournament. And in the regionals, we'll be facing up against Northern Kentucky on Friday, May the 31st at 7 p.m. Eastern time on SEC Network. After that, we'll be facing up against the winner of Indiana and Southern Mississippi. So you can also see down here that we'll be facing the winner in the regionals versus Wake Forest, East Carolina, VCU, and Evansville. You never know what's going to happen, y'all, whenever it comes to baseball and really any sport. Once it comes to the playoffs and once it comes to the tournament, it's about what teams are hot at the right time. I think that our Volunteers are hot, but we need to continue to stay hot and maybe get a little bit hotter with our pitching to continue to go further. But I do see us learning from the mistakes that we made back in 2022. I think that this team will go to the World Series, and I think that we will win the World Series. All right, y'all, let's talk a little bit of football, okay? I really want to focus on what our offensive tackle depth is looking like moving forward because we have just kind of touched on, the entire offensive line. We've talked some about individual positions, but, man, I think that we're loading up to have maybe the best tackle room moving forward. So we're talking about 2025, 2026. This could be the deepest tackle room in the entire country, especially whenever you look at some of the movement and things that are going to be changing here within the next year or so, as far as maybe players won't be able to transfer out as much. We have a just room of riches, and I'm very excited to talk about it. So, number 1, let's talk about Larry Johnson III, 6'6", 340 pounds, redshirt sophomore, which is why I put a star next to his name because he really is more of an upperclassman, but since he is a redshirt sophomore, he has 2 more years of eligibility left to play with us. So you could kind of look at him as an underclass guy as well. Hearing a whole lot of good things about him potentially being one of our swing tackles this season, you love to hear it because, again, we didn't know what the depth was going to look like, but he might get thrown out there some, and he should be able to progress throughout, this entire season. And talking about 2025, he could be a guy that we could lean on. He could be fighting to be a starter, maybe at right tackle, because the next guy, Lance Hurd, is going to be playing at left tackle. He's a 6'6", 340-pound sophomore, 5-star coming out of high school, #1 rated offensive lineman coming out of high school. And obviously, he's going to be an absolute and total stud. I think that he's really going to work himself up on several draft boards this season, being able to start throughout the entire season. And he's going to get a lot more experience. Expect for him to kind of be the cornerstone of this offensive line moving forward. Next to Sham Umarov at 6'7", 320 pounds. Pay attention to the size of all these players. It's prototype, and I think that they all move very well. But, he's a redshirt freshman, and, he's playing at maybe left guard this season. I know that they're trying him out there. I think he's going to end up starting there. I've said that several times. But who's to say with some of the youth that we have coming in that could play guard next year if he won't make the move back to tackle? Now, we're talking about all this depth that we have at this point. I think that he's probably going to end up staying at left guard, but what a luxury it is to have a player that can be a true tackle and also can have a, tremendous upside playing a guard. I think that that's huge. Now, the next player, Trevor Duncan at 6'6", 300 pounds. He's a redshirt freshman, came in with the 2024 class. He was more of an athlete. We said, is he going to play on the, D line, or is he going to move to offense? Well, he moved on over to offense. They love him at tackle, but whenever you see his frame, his body, he looks like a prototype tackle. Very long arms. He looks lean. He has really good feet. He's a tremendous athlete. He's one that I think is a sleeper. We heard several insiders and coaches, players, everything. It's kind of raving about his work. They're saying, man, watch out for him once he gains that weight. That's, I think, all that he needs to worry about at this point. We could say the same thing about several of the other players that we're going to be talking about here. J.C. Perry will be another one as a true freshman, 6'6", 300 pounds. He has a great frame. This needs to add some more size and strength. But I love what I saw from him just throughout all of spring. Really, really good footwork. You could tell that he's nasty. He's a dog. He's one that I didn't think would be at this point this early on, just watching his high school film. But, man, he definitely proved me wrong. I knew that he would grow into a really good player, maybe by his sophomore year, junior year. But seeing him doing that or doing what he's doing right now as a true freshman, you need to be very excited about J.C. Perry as well. And then we've got Gage Ginther, 6'6", 300 pounds. He's another freshman, right? Same thing. He needs to gain weight, needs to get stronger. Like what I saw from him playing at tackle. He's another one that could also be moved over to guard, but probably going to be more of a tackle body. He's a guy that, Cube talked about. Several analysts, even outside of our program, have talked a lot about Gage Ginther. And he's one that I definitely think has a tremendous upside as well. Very similar to J.C. Perry. Now, I want to talk about the two players that we just saw coming up on campus. They look really good. Bennett Warren, we've talked about him a ton, 6'8", 330 pounds. He looks good coming up on campus. It looks like he's been cutting some of the bad weight off. And, I've seen some videos of him since the end of his senior season to the point that we're at now, and you can tell that he's putting that work in. He's a really, really good athlete. He's got prototype size, really long arms. He could be another one that you talk about as a left tackle, maybe even as a right tackle. He looks really good in run protection. My biggest question has been, can he get quick enough with his feet to be a good pass blocker? And hopefully we'll hear a lot of good things about him over the summer. He's one that, man, if he picks it up, he can be another one that we could talk about this season that could be a swing tackle guy, because he doesn't have the problem that the other incoming freshmen, or, the freshmen that are not incoming anymore, they're up there now. They're part of the team. But all those freshmen really need to gain a whole lot more weight. They need to get stronger. But Bennett Warren, I don't think necessarily is going to have, he's not really going to have to gain any more weight. For him, it's going to be more about, like we talked about, cutting some weight, and he probably will need to continue to get stronger. But we'll see. Very excited about Bennett Warren. The other one that we saw, man, is Jeremiah Hurd. Dude, 6'8", 305 pounds. You want to talk about, you can just look at him and tell. P and I'll talk about this on this channel all the time. You can just look at him and you can tell that he could be really, really good tackle. I don't want to go too far and say a future NFL Pro Bowl type of a guy, but that's how he looks already as an incoming freshman. And just watching him playing basketball, because there's not a whole lot of football highlights for us to, kind of dissect and break down. But him on that basketball court, look at how big he is. Look at the way that he moves, how agile he is, how explosive he is. Yeah, He's one that I think will be playing on the offensive side of the football at tackle. And, P and I also kind of went back and forth on will he be a defensive tackle for us? He could do that as well. But, man, I just think that he has way too much upside playing at offensive tackle. He's one that I would also say, man, left tackle almost for sure. But we have to see how he looks actually playing football, because it's one thing to have all the tools. It's a whole nother thing to actually get out there and be able to show it and prove it once those pads come on. So he's one, man. I'm going to tell y'all, if there's anybody that you should be paying very close attention to, what are the coaches talking about over the summer? What are the insiders and experts talking about over the summer? I want to hear a whole lot about Jeremiah Hurd. I want to know exactly what's going on with him, because I think that he could also work himself into potentially being a swing tackle for us this season at some point in the season. He's still pretty new to playing football, so it might take him some time to get acclimated, especially playing on this level. But, man, his upside is just incredible. Now let's talk about, okay, the players in the black. That's going to be the players that we feel like could come in 2025. David Sanders, talked about him so much, 5-star. Reminds me a lot of Tyrone Smith. I believe that he graduated from high school in 2008. Go back and look at some of his clips. You know what I mean? Like, look at some of his pictures. He was 6'8", very lean. I think about 290, maybe even 280 pounds. He wasn't a very, big guy, but he was tall. He was long, had those very long arms, and he had abs. He was cut up. But just looking at the way that his body was kind of put together reminds me a lot of David Sanders. David Sanders, I feel like, is a little bit further along as far as having the college-ready weight. I don't know how much he weighs, but, man, I saw a picture of him like next to GMAC, who we know is listed at 6'6". I think he came in literally at like 6'5.5", but David Sanders looks like he's about 2 inches taller than him. So he looks like he's about 6'8", maybe about 305-ish pounds already. And he moves really well. So he's a player that could potentially play as a true freshman on the right side. But looking at all the other talent inside of this room, you're saying, man, it's going to be a lot of competition. Just makes that room that much better. So it's not 100% that he would start on this team if he does choose us, but we do feel like he's trending towards Tennessee. We got to get through the summer. Sounds like with Austin Price that around July, he's probably going to decide on where he's going. If he comes out of his OV with us he's trending towards us, I would say that he's probably coming on home to Knoxville. So don't want to say that he's already in the boat by any means. We still have, another month or two to go, but it's looking really good for us so far. The next player is Jalen Matthews, 4-star. He's another one that I think could be a tackle, but he could also kind of slide in and play guard. I think that he would be a player that, could he play as a true freshman? I don't think so, not with how talented this room is, but maybe his second year. You keep on working up against this great D-line. You keep on working alongside of, more talent. It's just going to make you that much better. He could be a guy that could be pushing for some playing time as well, so a whole lot of competition already. Next player that I do think that we're going to end up landing in this class is Josh Petty, 5-star offensive tackle. Now, he's a little bit on the shorter side for a tackle. As far as what he's listed at, he might have grown. But for me personally, right, I would like for my tackles to be at least 6'5". I think he's like right at 6'5". So I'm saying that he could have a little bit more upside on this team playing at guard. And some of y'all might be saying, well, we haven't heard a lot of the insiders and experts saying that he's trending to Tennessee, and they haven't. Everyone's saying he's going to Florida State. But he grew up as a Tennessee fan, and he's right in that area. We talked about this before on this channel, right down 75, right? Like once you get into Georgia, everything off of 75, there's a lot of Tennessee fans. Tennessee should do a really good job in these areas. I think that once he comes up on his OV, he's going to fall in love with Tennessee. That's really all I think that he needed, was just that extra push from this staff. I am anticipating that we will roll the red carpet out for Mr. Petty, and he will be coming on home to Tennessee. So whether he plays at tackle or at guard, let's just talk about him at tackle for the sake of this video. I think that he adds a lot. We're talking about adding, 2 5-star tackles to this 2025 class, along with all the other talent that we already have on this roster. It's going to be incredible, and it already is incredible seeing what Coach Heupel has done in turning weaknesses into strengths on this team. We did it with tight end. We did it with D tackle. We've done it with pretty much every single position group once he kind of came in, because everything was almost kind of a weakness. But really, I mean, you could even say that we did it with wide receiver if you just look at how our wide receivers performed last season compared to what they are now. Coach Heupel just gets it, y'all. He just knows what he's doing. This entire staff gets it. And I would love for this staff to be able to kind of stay together, because it seems like they're even gelling on a different level. But yeah, I mean, our offensive tackle group moving forward for 25, 26, probably 27, and so on and so forth is going to be filthy. Whenever an offense like this has a great offensive line, especially with tackles, we're seeing the quarterbacks that we're getting in and, the talent in other areas. I mean, we should be national title contenders for the, foreseeable future, for sure. So that's it for this one, though, y'all. Let me know y'all's thoughts down in the comments section. And as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. We'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.